passionate person, as you know.
Yeah.
If you're very passionate about these thoughts, as you claim to be, then you should create a life that reflects that those sort
Yeah.
of values that you claim to have, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that's like a good segue into our world expansions, that like we are like constantly putting the puzzle pieces together to create the life that we want to be living. You don't need money to do it. You can just do it by like action. And some people would say with the Tesla conversation, like, well, like I don't have the money to do it. It's like you could sell the car to a used dealership and you can get a cheaper car. You could get, there's
You
like sort of
totally could.
there's steps to like create a world that reflect your beliefs.
Okay, so Shelby Ruth Ellis, this week we are talking all about world expansion and creating worlds that reflect your beliefs. Let's start things off with a little context. What does world expansion mean to you? How do you define world expansion?
To me, I mean, in like a very literal sense, it's like obviously expanding your world, and so you're sort of creating in every aspect of your life the ability to reach out further. So whether that's through friendship, trying to expand your intake of perspectives, trying to expand your understanding of different cultures, and also expanding your own life. So how does expanding into these like new realms create a more full life, and maybe give you opportunities to expand your own existence?
Beautifully said. I
What's
think
your
a lot about this yeah, this kind of dynamic between like the known world and the unknown world. It's every day, well not every day, many days, most days, you wake up in your bedroom and that's a familiar space, it's a familiar world. You know your bedroom quite well. You walk outside of your bedroom, you know your house, familiar world. There's all these things that are familiar world and it's known. And when you're operating in the known world, it's familiar, it's not new, but beyond the known world, there are unknown worlds, and the unknown world could look like just maybe even how the sky looks when you walk outside. That's an unknown world for you on any given day. You don't know until you've gone outside. So that's world expanding. There's portals you can step through, all kinds of portals, ideas, movements, activities, and they take you out of the known world and into the unknown world. I think that going to like shows, hearing live music, those are things that expand your world. Listening to people you don't agree with or have different ideas, different cultures, different frameworks for thinking about things, those are world expanding. So for me, world expansion is all about either pushing the frontiers on your known world or going into a new world that is completely unknown to you and kind of seeing it as an outsider. I think that outsider mindset and that outsider perspective, that new beginner learning something perspective, is very important for the feeling of world expansion.
Absolutely. And I like that you said that you can expand the parameters of your known world, because I think a lot of people think of world expansion in the context of like travel, right? Like you have to like travel to this new place and like then expand your understanding of the world. But the reality is that like there's coffee shops down the road that I've never been in, and there are many neighbors that I've never met, and that's a way that I can expand my world too.
Yeah, every coffee shop is a world expansion. Every dive bar is a world expansion, potentially.
Mhm. And you and I love to talk about world expansion on like the internet, and that like there are worlds within my screen that I can expand within as well.
So many worlds.
So many worlds, and creating new ones constantly. Isn't that cool?
But yeah, it's not static. The galaxy is expanding.
Yeah. And you can even be the creator of a new world, which is a cool thing as well that we'll get into. Um, so if world expansion exists, there it sort of implies that there is world contraction as well. How do you contextualize world contraction?
Yeah. So world contraction could kind of be maybe one of two different things. One version of world contraction is you are feeling very just familiar all the time, that you've seen everything, there's nothing new to see. And when you have that feeling, it's a very kind of depressing and disenchanting thing, I think, because it sort of robs you of the magic of discovery, the magic of like hoping to learn something new or to be surprised by something. And you're kind of living in the familiar world too much. You're living in you're not really pushing your boundaries. Is maybe is that what's happening in that form of world contraction. And there's another form of world contraction, I think, which is sort of an intentional thing, which is when you say, I know this world very well, and I'm going to spend a little bit of less time focusing on it, or I'm not going to keep exploring it anymore because I have mapped this world out. And that's kind of contextualizing and like recontextualizing where this world fits in your galaxy, your constellation of worlds that you're exploring. And in that case, when you're doing world contraction, you're actually giving yourself space to explore more future worlds.
Yeah, I think when I think of world contraction, I think you're right that there is a version where it's just like sort of self-isolation. But I think that there's also a refining version of world contraction where expansion and contraction are like inhale and exhale, right? Where you're like,
Yes,
I take in a
absolutely.
bunch and then I define what is me and what I relate to and what I want to keep. And it's kind of like the editing process, right? You can be like, no, that wasn't for me. That thing is, and I can add that to my repertoire. And yeah, finding sort of like self-definition in your position in the world. And also like we all need that time to contract within ourselves and recenter. And I think that and express too. I think sometimes, especially like my relationship to the online world, like I'll go looking, rabbit holing into these different little worlds. And then I'm like, cool, okay, I've collected a bunch of information. And now what do I think about it? And now I can express just what I'm thinking about as a reaction to that expansion. And then when I find myself sort of running out of gas, where it's like, okay, I've really defined this, then I can expand again.
I love that metaphor of breathing and kind of inhale, exhale. You have this cycle you're talking about of seeking, refining, expressing, and then that creates the natural sort of momentum to continue that cycle. And you can keep doing it again and again. I love the idea of expression as a essential part of world expansion. And I think expression, it's beautiful how it invites other people into your world
Yeah, yeah.
specifically.
I like that too, because there's, I think when people want to expand their world, they're like, I feel sort of like tight and refined and isolated. And then they also tend to forget that there is a world within them that
Yes.
others want to expand into as well.
Yes. Expressing yourself, yeah, it creates the world of you for other people.
Yes.
It's beautiful. So, one thing that people have been talking about a lot these days is this concept of agency. And I'm curious, what does agency mean to you? What are your thoughts on agency?
The way I think of agency is that, I mean, it kind of has multiple parts to it, right? I think to have agency, it requires self awareness. You have to be able to catch yourself in the act in order to redirect yourself. Agency implies this ability to like have an idea and act upon it, or direct oneself towards their goals or their desires or their values. And so I think first one must have self awareness in order to induce agency. But in addition to that, you also have to have like quite a bit of intention. You have to be able to like choose a path and walk it, and not get too distracted on all of the other options and all of the other paths. So there's like a level of discipline within agency as well. But mostly it's this ability to catch yourself walking away from the path that you've chosen, and redirect yourself, and then the will to be able to guide yourself forward.
So, use the word will. How does one kind of cultivate that will, or where do you see will coming from, or like not coming from in the culture and the world? Because there's this sort of axis that people talk about of kind of like, are you high agency or are you low agency? And it sounds like in your framework, will is, you know, a key part of agency. So would will enable someone to be more high agency relative to low agency?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that that stems pretty greatly from like courage,
Hmm.
right? The courage to act. And sometimes the courage to act is like, I've been scrolling on my phone for 30 minutes and I said I was going to get off my phone at 9:30 and now it's 9:45, and I just have to make myself stop. And I think there's like a lot of tools for that. My greatest tool is just counting to three, like I'm a 5 year old, and literally like verbally out loud going 1, 2, 3 and getting up,
Hmm.
and changing what I'm doing to what I'm supposed to be doing or what I actually want to be doing.
It reminds me of at the beginning of The Matrix when Trinity is lying on the ground and she thinks she's being chased by the agent and she just says like, "Get up, Trinity. Get
Yeah,
up." Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, some of it's just like self-belief too. I think there's been like quite a question, an ongoing question within humanity of like, do we have free will? And I think it's pretty hard to have agency if you're still pondering that question. You kind of have to just say, like, yes, I do. I do have free will and I choose it.
Yeah. It's actually pretty remarkable to me how much energy there is culturally against free will, and this idea that people are making their own decisions, that people are responsible for their own decisions, that people are even trustworthy to make their own decisions. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole because that is a deep rabbit hole with many political implications. But what I wanted to say about agency too is I think there's something about how you react to problems, and some people, the kind of low agency type of person, hits a problem and says, this problem can't be solved, or there's nothing that I can do. You know, I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas. It's like that energy is the default energy. And it's very easy. The human brain is incredibly sophisticated and incredibly good at coming up with a rationalization for why the easiest thing to do, which is often nothing, is the correct thing to do. So you need to really learn the hard way this truth that you can't just always listen to the first like thought or instinct you have. You might actually need to consciously reject the lazy, low agency version of yourself and intentionally do something different. Sometimes that means coming up with a complicated plan. Sometimes that means just acting off of a different kind of intuition and doing something and trusting that you'll be able to adjust the plan as needed based on the feedback you get from reality. I think a lot of people, it's very easy to get stuck in your head in the modern world. And when you're stuck in your head, you're overthinking things. You have a bias towards sitting and thinking instead of moving and doing. So a really good just like tool for like my agency is like, what would a person, I just ask myself, what would a person who's not allowed to make excuses do about this? And that just kind of like cuts through your own inner bullshit generator.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. And there seems to be too, I mean, world expansion is pretty like impossible without this like sense of agency, right? Like there's a lot of fear that has to be faced when it comes to agency or when it comes to world expansion, because the more that one isolates, the more like sort of like cozy it can feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Some people don't feel this way. Some people like I think get anxious when they're like stuck inside of themselves. I'm a person who's like a lot more comfortable inside of myself than branching out into the world. Especially with like the aid of like social media, I can really like let myself sink into thinking that I'm expanding my world,
Mm.
without actually doing it. And yeah, when we pretty much like, if you're a person like me, you pretty much like need a sense of agency and a lot of courage to like branch outward.
There's one other thing I wanted to say on agency, which is kind of about what agency is not. And we have this perception, I think, when we talk about agency a lot, in especially in online spaces, that agency is kind of like this virtuous, enlightened higher self driving a bus or something. And it's like it's kind of like the bus driver is controlling everything. And I think there's something to be said about having a bias for action and self belief, but we do live in a constrained condition. We are constrained by our bodies. We are constrained by the material aspects of reality around us, often, not always, but often. And all of these constraints, sometimes you can't solve a problem that's just like mathematically impossible to solve. And when you hit those types of problems, the high agency thing I think to do is to like surrender to the reality instead of trying to stubbornly impose your will on reality. I had a issue where I had been addicted to running, as one does. It's an incredible high. I highly recommend it. And because I was running too much, I injured my knee, and I didn't really know how to like handle this emotionally because I just kept wanting to run and get that really good feeling in my body and head again. And I, instead of sort of being patient, I think, and doing like rehab, physical therapy, finding other ways to exercise that wouldn't put so much pressure on my joints, I would just kind of like try to go for a run, and it wouldn't work like 70% of the time because my knee would flare up, and I would just be like, I can't run in this pain. It's obviously not good. And that I think is kind of like an example of what I'm talking about, where it's like I needed to surrender to the reality, and I needed to, I think, be a little more courageous and adaptable. Like I would have benefited from swimming, like trying swimming earlier, or like just like hiking, walking, doing other things, trying other things instead of trying to impose my will on reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the difficulty of free will, right? I mean, I know I just said that you pretty much can't have agency if you have the question of free will sort of lingering in your mind, but I do sort of I think that there's a heavy balance between the accepting our limits, accepting the confines of reality, and also knowing that we have will. And that is I mean, maybe the question that one should ask themselves when they're sort of like teetering between, is this a me issue, or is this a world issue, is like, is there something that I can do to change this? Is there something that I can do to enact change on my circumstances? And when it comes to the body, often, sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is yes. But like in your situation, the answer was sort of like no. Like there, there's very little that I can do to get myself back into running in the amount that I want to be running, because it's just not good for my body. And my body's rejecting it. And so there's like I don't know, there's like a level of destiny as well, of like, and I think destiny rarely presents itself as something that you can't do, but rather something that would require an immense amount of courage for you to do and that you feel sort of drawn to. And so, and that requires quite a bit of agency. So I think that to me, like, tends to be the line where it's like, I'm destined to do this if not if I receive no resistance, but if I receive, oh no, pretty much exclusively like internal resistance,
Yes.
emotional, spiritual resistance.
Beautifully said. So you had hit on this thread of kind of self-awareness and like knowing thyself as relating to agency. Why is it so important to have self-awareness in order to be effective at agency? And this can also, I think, lead into a sort of free-flowing conversation about desires and where do they come from and what have we learned about desires in our own life.
I think the more that you know yourself, the less likely you are to fall into like pitfalls, or at least the more quickly you'll be able to like identify a pitfall when you're falling into it. And so there's sort of this proactive feeling about knowing thyself. I think in terms of world expansion, to be able to expand with intention and move into these new worlds, you first off have to deeply know what you want and what you're looking for. Obviously, there's an element of surprise within all of this that is fun, and sometimes you find communities and places and objects that you weren't expecting and didn't know existed. And in that scenario, the necessity of knowing yourself is also present in one's ability to know what they should take with them and what they do like. I mean, I think part of moving into new worlds and new spaces is if you don't know yourself and if you're not grounded in a sense of self, you can be easily captured by communities that maybe don't align with you or beliefs that don't align with you. And I think that's how people fall into like cults or these sort of like online political ideologies and these groups that they feel a sense of camaraderie with, but they don't know why. And sometimes they think that it's because of the ideas, but it might actually be because they're being shamed or guilted, or because they just feel a sense of belonging for the first time. And so when we expand our worlds, we have to know who we're coming back to and how to remain ourselves in these new places.
That's huge. I think the way you said, quote, you can easily be captured really hits on something there. And I'm thinking now of Proverbs 4:23, which is above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do in life flows from it. And I think that's, I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I just feel the truth of those words so deeply. And it's true. The unguarded heart is corruptible. And the unguarded heart is going to lead you astray. And we don't want to be led astray. We want to orient towards goodness, truth, beauty, all the good things in the world. We want to build good lives. We want to live good lives. We want to have honorable lives. And all of those aspects, I think, kind of fit into the world expansion versus world contraction axis very nicely too. I think if you're in a cult, what is happening to you is you have taken a specific world and you've blown it up. You've made it massive. You've made it your whole world. And that can be very exciting and tantalizing, addictive even, really, that sense of community and belonging. but it's always dangerous to have your entire world be one thing, and it's there's that risk of imbalance, that risk of finding out that the things that you think are bringing you together aren't actually as deep as you thought they were. Yeah.
And maybe this emphasizes too the necessity of that healthy contraction
Yeah.
is when we're out in the world all the time, intaking and consuming, we're not doing that refining of checking in with our internal selves and seeing like, what do I want to keep? We're just taking everything in, and we might be subconsciously, unconsciously adopting other people's beliefs and other people's thoughts that aren't our own, putting on their clothes. Like I see people talk all the time about the like flattening of style. And while that's not super present in the Midwest where I live, I definitely saw it when I went and visited New York. There's like this sort of like everybody's wearing the same thing sort of look.
Mm.
And I think that when you're in like a super high consumer location where there's like all of these people and you're constantly intaking, you can kind of like lose track of what is a reflection of you and what's a reflection of the places you are spending time.
Yeah. I'm now thinking of that famous quote, the unexamined life is not worth living. And I think with fashion and consumerism and just like taking in, that can very quickly become an unexamined life in the modern world. It's unexamined information, it's unexamined energy. We take it for granted that it's coming to us with more care and intention than it really is. I think, especially when we're like scrolling Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, whatever, all of our social media feeds are very erratic unless you make them not erratic, philosophically, energetically. Um, and I'm a big believer in examining the unexamined because we are people. As we go through life, we grow and we change. And a lot of unexamined things tend to sit dormant, like a piece of, like an outfit, some clothes in your closet that you haven't used in 10 years. It's just sitting there and it needs to be let go, right? It deserves to be let go, but it's sitting there unexamined. And so it's taking up space that could be something else.
Yeah. And on like an internal level, I think that that appears in like these like subconscious behaviors, this like sort of ongoing resentment that you don't understand the source of. And then that sort of like bitterness that you don't really know how to grapple with, sort of like appears in ways that maybe are dishonest, kind of like finding groups that are angry about things, and piggybacking onto that anger when really like the source of your anger is not what you claim to be.
Yeah, the anger comes from within. It's something to do with who you are and who you're around.
Yeah, and these unexamined things living within you that you won't sit with, and that's an act of refining as well, and curating, because you know I think when we're talking about the world within us and the world that we have to offer other people to explore, we're all like a reflection of our inner life. And so if that inner life is messy and dirty and unkept, we sort of project that outward for other people to look at. And some people want to join you and other people want to resist you. And then some people, like, I think the community that we're on that we're within finds it actually just very fascinating to observe people who are coming from that place,
Yes.
because we find it fascinating to observe ourselves when we're coming from that place.
Yes. Amen. I want to talk about desires because I think desires are a big part of how we move through the world. And I want to talk about where do our desires come from and what does it feel like? I think we've both had probably many significant life experiences where we thought we wanted something, we put a lot of effort and energy into moving towards that thing, and then we got it and we were kind of like, huh, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
What do you think about desires and where they come from and like what's real, what's fake?
I maintain the right to change my mind in the future about this, but
Absolutely, granted.
I tend to disagree with the like Buddhist idea that like desire is like the root of all suffering.
Mm,
I think that misguided desire is sort of like the root of all suffering. I don't actually think that it's like suffering in itself to want. But because I have found that when my desires align with my innermost truths, and and when they align with like what I believe to be my mission in the world, then I don't feel suffering. I feel like sort of a mission. I feel a need to enact, and this drive sort of like pushing behind it. Maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe I'll get something that I thought I really, really wanted, and then that idea will fade again. But in times where I've gotten things that I wanted, most of the time when I was disappointed by them, it's because I wanted them for the wrong reasons. That
yeah.
seems to be the theme for me. Maybe a bit of a cliche. It seems that a lot of humans learn that lesson in this life.
We have so many cultural messages telling you what you're supposed to want, right? And it's very overwhelming to parse between whether you think you want something because you're being told that you're supposed to want it versus you actually want it. And I think a ton about this idea that, people are so different from each other. Like, I really feel like everybody is so unique, so singular, such a one of one spirit and being. And we talk about these like paths through life and these things you're supposed to want, like they apply to everyone. And until you figure out how unique you are and the ways that you're unique, you're going to be, I think, very susceptible to all sorts of false desires and moving towards things that aren't going to be meaningful or satisfying. One of the patterns I've noticed, I think, in false desires in my own life is when I'm doing something that kind of conforms to a social expectation or a desire. A lot of the milestones in my life, like getting into a good college, getting a job, buying a home, these were kind of societal milestones, sort of cultural milestones and cultural desires. And they actually, none of them particularly fulfilled me or were very meaningful to achieve. And I realized that I think the energy that I'm meant to put out into the world is much more specific to me, and it's about using my sense of humor, using my perception, using my gift with words to illuminate and explore ideas and to be playful, to be like innocent, I think, about things too. There's so much shame and guilt in the world now and in the culture now. I feel a strong reaction against that. And it's like, I know that I don't want to be perpetuating guilt and shame in the world. I want to be perpetuating truth and beauty and goodness Those are the things that I want my words and actions to point towards.
Amen. Do you feel like you're like susceptible to these societal standards because they are created like because you're receiving them from sort of all angles, or do you feel like you're susceptible because you receive them from specific people who want to maintain this image of society and they would like it from
Yeah.
you as well?
Well, I'll answer that by saying yes, Shelby. Yes. I think it's absolutely operating on both of those dimensions. The fact that it's all around us, that makes culture kind of like an ocean. It's like that's the water we swim in. Everybody dissolves into culture in America. The American mainstream culture is incredibly powerful. I mean, it has so much gravity to it and so much current. You can, like, just to give an example, you've got the daughter of like first generation Chinese immigrants, and they will raise her according to Chinese cultural values and speak Chinese in the home as much as possible and send her to Chinese school, you know, on the weekend and in evenings. And just by going to American public schools, she is going to be much more like an American than Chinese, culturally. She is going to be adopting the mainstream culture. And that is an incredibly just like powerful illustration of how strong culture is, that you can invest all of this time and effort and financial energy into resisting culture that way. And a person is still going to be very much very much, what's the word I'm looking for? Molded by the mainstream culture that they're in, because that's how swimming in the ocean works. You feel the currents.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it's because I sort of like subscribe to the American project, and therefore sort of like um, generally sort of like grew up in a place that it's hard to say. Um, for the most part, I like sort of like agreed with the values that I grew up
Mm-hmm.
amongst. They weren't always reflected by the people that were teaching them to me, but they at at like base level principle, I was like pretty much in agreement with them. So rebelling against that wasn't something that I like necessarily was excited to do or like wanted to do. But I had a much harder time rebelling against the expectations of people that I really loved,
Mm.
who wanted me to be and still want me to be sort of like living in alignment with greater societal paths that have already been laid out
Yeah.
for us. So I find the pressure from like intimate relationships a lot more taxing than like the general like cultural plan that
Yeah.
like American culture has for its young people.
That's very, very real, and it's such a strong pressure. It's I'm thinking about just like my experiences like online, and like every now and then you'll say something that like makes someone like really mad, and you'll get a bunch of like strangers attacking you for something you said, and it's so easy for me to just ignore that because I'm like, you don't know me, you don't know what you're talking about. There's like no context even for me to care about you or think that your opinion like should matter to me. It's really easy for me to like ignore that energy. But if somebody who I like loved and cared about was like, "Oh, you're a bad person for like thinking this," or even just like asking these questions, being curious about this thing, that hits a lot harder. That shapes your behavior, and like we really do have all these subconscious ways of signaling approval and disapproval. It so much relates to status. I think people want to be validated in their status choices. And so a person who cares a lot about money and how much they make and has finally like started making a good amount of money is going to be really insecure at the thought of like somebody who doesn't care that much about money and cares more about just like how their day feels on a day-to-day basis. And they're going to kind of try to like change that person because that person is an existential threat to their worldview. The idea that somebody is allowed to not care about money or career prestige is yeah, to some people that's like completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and that feels like kind of ancestral, right? That like
Yeah.
there's like this resentment of like I wasn't allowed to do what you're
Yes.
doing. And
Crabs in a
so
bucket. Oh my god.
yeah, so for like you living simply living your life is like a threat to their choices and to the way
Yes.
that they decided to live their life because they really felt like they didn't have any agency, right? Like they were sort of like victimized by the world, and your lack of victimization is a test against them, and almost like I mean, I think experientially they see it as like sort of like an act of violence against their life choices.
Yeah, I had this thought a while back that people who are insecure and care a lot about what other people think of them often want to become more secure, and they think that this will like make them get attacked less. But I think the reality is that like secure and confident people get attacked way more than anyone else. And there's a sort of normalization of, I think, resentment in the culture. It's very easy to tear people down. We have people who are professional, basically professional full-time sneerers. They sneer at people and try to drag people's attitudes and values and the way they live their life. They just try to drag those things down and say, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to. This is not a worthy thing to do, a worthy way to spend your time. And this dynamic of if you want to be world expanding, you are going to necessarily be increasing the surface area that people can use to attack you. And it takes a certain amount of courage, I think, to say, I'm basically going to be so strong and so secure in my frame that I don't care. I'm going to expand my world by caring less about what other people think of me. And that's the art of it,
And it
and the
seems to be
hardness
like
of it.
the source of that fear, right? When we're preparing to world expand and try new things and consider that our lives can be more than what they currently are. That fear is that, like, oh, well, what if the things that I have right now don't want me anymore when I become more? What if they don't? What if they don't align with me? What if I don't want them anymore, but I really
Yeah.
like them right now? And there's this real sense of like, I'd like to just crawl under the covers feeling with all of that, of like, I would just like to
Yeah.
hide. But then there's like this ongoing sort of like internal struggle that goes on where it's like, that there's more for you in the world. And
Yeah.
to me, like that initial discomfort is very, it's just not very, it doesn't exist for very long.
Yeah.
It's very difficult at first, and then the in like anything else, it requires quite a bit of practice. And the more that you
Hmm.
expand, the less comfortable you'll be in a state of stagnancy.
Yeah, I think the discomfort that you're talking about, it like grows the more you don't do anything, the more inactive you stay, and it becomes bigger and bigger, like this dragon that is impossible to slay. And that's kind of how avoidance works, right? It's like you're avoiding this thing that you're afraid of, which is that if I expand my world, I'm not going to be able to keep everything that I currently have, or that I might get rejected for new aspects of myself. And you have to just kind of cut through that fear. And let me just tell everyone directly, that's going to happen. Like when you world expand, you're not going to be able to take everyone with you. you are going to have to let go of friends and relationships. And like, if you want to change, and oftentimes changing makes you different in ways that makes you incompatible with the old. So you're going to have to, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and that doesn't mean that they have to be like, for example, the people that you want to take with you but can't. That doesn't mean that they like need to be dead to you or like might
Yeah.
never
Right.
return. Because there's also this like amazing thing that happens in world expansion where like you like go off on your little journey into your new land and you collect new things and new people. And then sometimes you're like just walking down the road like 6 years later and you like run into somebody that you thought you had to let go of like when you first started your journey. And then they're there and then you meet each other and you're like, whoa, we're totally different people. And we've been on our own journeys. Like, because there's
Yeah.
another magical thing that happens, which is that like you're not just restraining yourself by not expanding your world. You're restraining the people around you as well by remaining in relationships that you don't actually want to be a part of. Like, I'll just share a personal story. I had a friend who I really didn't want to let go of a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her dearly, but we were in like such a codependent relationship. I couldn't figure out how to like set boundaries with her in a way that our relationship could still exist. It was a very difficult relationship for me to leave because I loved her
Mm-hmm.
so much. And we're not friends at the moment, but I have like seen some things evolve in her life and like we have some mutual friends that I still talk to and like she seems to be like getting many of the things that she wanted when we were in relationship with each other and
Yeah.
not to make her entire life about me, but I do think that there was like an element of like neither of us could grow anymore with each other. Like we needed to like go and live our own lives. And now there are aspects of our lives that are extensively better because we're not in relationship with each other. So you're doing everybody a service by allowing yourself
Yeah.
to move forward.
I'm feeling that very, very acutely. I'm kind of going through a similar thing with a long time and close friend, and it's difficult. But kind of just get this feeling that this intuition that the less time we spend with each other, the better it is for both of us. And it's like, I'm going to be free of kind of conforming to this expectation of an old version of myself, which I'm not anymore. It's like, this is a friend that I've known since high school. That's, 15, 20 years of context. That's a very hard thing to overcome sometimes. And I've changed a ton in the past couple of years. I've become much more religious. Faith has become much more important to me. My belief in God kind of guides a lot of what I do. And I've recovered from alcoholism. I'm, 2+ years sober. And one of the hard things about making those changes in my life is that a lot of my friends from my past were people who overlapped with alcoholism as a primary interest of what we would do together. And now that we don't have that in common, it turns out we actually have very little in common. And that's sad, but it's a beautiful thing, really. It's, we're all going through our own arcs and journeys. And by walking away from something that was bad for me, I'm walking towards things that are good for me. And that, I wouldn't sacrifice that for anything.
You have me thinking about how sobriety itself is like sort of an act of world expansion. Although
Yes.
people often feel that it's world contraction, or at least they
Yeah.
fear it will be right before they get sober. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Okay, that's a fascinating framing for it. Yeah, it's been really world expanding. One of the things about alcoholism is that it's alcohol is a numbing agent. It desensitizes you, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and they use alcohol as a habitual numbing agent because it makes them not have to confront this like sadness they're carrying or this anger they feel. It's like usually like those are, I think, kind of the like two predominant emotions, and maybe shame about things as well. um Alcohol lets people kind of soothe those feelings and ignore those feelings, but it's not a cure for these things. It's very much downstream. Alcoholism is downstream of the emotional problems that are driving someone to drink excessively and habitually. So when you become sober, you're almost necessarily going to be stepping into this emotional world that you have been ignoring, neglecting, leaving unexamined. And it's going to be a world expansion when you explore that and deal with it. And when you're done exploring that and when you've sort of understood it and started to heal, I think, from the things that you were ignoring, that world of hurt is going to contract. And that's going to leave you with a whole world of space for way better things. You're going to have better friendships, better romantic relationships, better hobbies, better activities. It just all naturally is going to align that way. And it's really beautiful when that happens. There is an element of sobriety that does feel also like, as far as activities and hobbies go, it can be a little bit of a world contraction because we have so much cultural norms around partying, going to bars. A lot of like people go to festivals and concerts not just because they want to hear the music, but because it's an excuse to get drunk and party. And there can be a tension when you're exploring sobriety between feeling like all of these social worlds and social practices that tie humanity together are going to be closing to you. But you have to just push through that because you can actually still party, have a great time. You can go out, you can enjoy all these things. It's going to be beautiful. Like the alcohol is just, it's a tool. It's not the essential nature of the experience itself. So it's like you can be as social and party as hard as you want while being sober. Really, the only doors that you're closing for yourself are mental doors.
That's great. Yeah, I love the idea of like it being sort of like a sensory world expansion because of the fact that it's a numbing agent and that you know, my husband's been sober for I think probably like 9 months at this point. Although
Amazing.
we've been sober together before. He's California sober, to be clear. Very
Yeah.
different.
That, still counts for
Still
something.
counts. And also like alcohol in particular. I think neither of us find marijuana to be particularly numbing. If anything, it's like quite an enhancer of sensory experience. And really what he's interested in is avoiding sort of like the numbness and the avoidant aspect of alcohol. And you know, the sensory experience that he describes on like a day-to-day level is just so intense. Like he's had sort of like psychedelic moments being sober. When I did a year of sobriety, I had multiple like sort of like psychedelic
Yes.
experiences after I
Reality
recovered.
is so psychedelic.
Reality is so psychedelic, and it's just like an ability to take in the sensory. And I don't even know if many addicts are like aware of how much they're actually trying to numb the amount of sensory that the world has to offer.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, getting to experience all of it
Yeah.
in deep presence is in and of itself a psychedelic experience. And so that feels like world expansion, our ability to expand our sensory experience.
Absolutely. I get high, literally high, like body highs from looking at nature and like looking up at the sky, checking out clouds, watching leaves on a tree dance in the wind. It's very intense when you actually pay attention like really closely and just like look at it and feel it. There's
Matt
a
and I were
lot
on a
going on.
Matt and I were on a call the other day, and he literally like stopped in the middle of it and was like, "Oh, a bird.
Yes.
Beautiful." Like it, like really like everything has to stop. And I think that's like beautiful and amazing, and what an amazing way to experience life. But I don't think that you would have gotten to do that if you didn't experience sobriety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, reality kind of has a way of slipping in through the cracks. So it's like even when I was drinking and like numbing myself and numbing my senses very habitually, I still was getting these little hints of beauty and enchantment. I just wasn't feeling them as deeply. I wasn't responding to them the way that I do now. And in that sense, almost it's like there was there were seeds that were being planted. I think there's that's something about world expansion. Is world expansion often comes out of seeds, and if you feel like something is a seed, you should hold on to that and you should water it and nourish it and keep it safe because it will probably grow into something really beautiful and world expanding.
Yeah. Agreed. Going back to desires,
Yes.
how do we identify what we want, and how does one go about building a world that they want?
So that's the like $1 trillion question because that obviously affects a lot of advertising, a lot of self help.
We're not
How
going
do
to
you
tell
know what you
you,
want?
we're not going to give you some sort of like theology on how to how to do it, by the way.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
trying to sell you our cult ideas, but trying to guide you towards intuition.
Yeah. So I think for me, a lot of it just begins with this idea of like people are not one size fits all. And there's so much cultural energy, especially within the school system, for conformity. Everyone is trying to conform to the teacher's expectations in the school system. All writing is meant to be presented in a certain way that matches the teacher's expectations. And your thinking, when you write like this, your thinking is also conforming to someone's expectations because writing is thinking. And this is a very powerful effect. To understand the ways that you are unique, you have to look for the patterns in your life of what makes you feel alive. Something that makes me feel alive is when my writing and observations about the world spread joy and enchantment, and I can like other people tell me, this really resonated with me. That makes me feel very alive. More than anything I accomplished in my, relatively successful mainstream career in the corporate world of higher education, I got much more satisfaction from a single person telling me that my writing inspired her to explore sobriety and that she was having all these like really significant and positive transformations in her life because of that. That meant so much to me. And that kind of points in what direction the work that I'm meant to do is.
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter. I wish I could give them credit. Maybe I'll find it later and link it. But they essentially were saying that alignment is always in service. If you're not sure whether you're in alignment, you should be asking yourself, am I working in service of others?
Mm-hmm.
Am I operating in service of others? Because the world wants us to heal each other, help each other,
Yeah.
work together. So that's a super great North Star for me to have when I'm sort of like confused about what I should be doing. It's like, is this in service of other people? Is this the best way that I can be in service of other people? Is this like a use of my unique skills to help others? And then like testing if my desires sort of like align with those acts of service. I think writing for you and me is like a really great way to be both in alignment with our skills and in service of others.
Yes.
Because I feel the same way. Wrote a free piece for a publication called Tiny Buddha, and about my family, and I got like a message from like a 17-year-old girl who was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to like make it through high school. And then
Mm.
I read your piece, and I like feel like I'm going to be
Yeah.
okay now. And
Wow.
like receiving things like that, because well, what struck me extra was the fact that like 17 was when I like was really severely suicidal and was in
Yes.
was institutionalized for my suicidal depression. So like that year in particular was very difficult for
Yeah.
me. And so like to hear this like young person almost feeling like a reflection of my old self sort of expressing that to me was very
Yeah.
gratifying.
Well, you remember the people who like changed your life and were there for you in those lowest moments, those hardest moments. And to be on the other side of that is a powerful thing. There's a cosmic resonance.
Yeah, I mean, they like are literally my heroes. Like they are like people who like saved my life. And like
Yes.
what greater reflection of my own growth and also my own desire for the world than to like spread more of that and be one of those people for somebody else. So I think that that helps to me guide want and desire is sort of like identifying, knowing thyself, right? Identifying skills, being like, what am I really good at? What do people like from me?
Yeah.
And how can it be of service to something greater? And then once you find a thing that you're like, yes, like everything in you screams yes, then it's like, all right, now it's time to like do the hard part, which is like to really focus and
Yeah.
like go forward.
To keep showing up and building.
Yeah. And
And
to
that,
not doubt it halfway
yeah,
through.
to listen to your intuition because we have so much energy in the culture against intuition. There's this idea that if you can't explain why you think something, that thing is wrong. And oftentimes, that's the exact opposite of reality.
Yeah. And that intuition, like coming back to like the significance of the contraction portion of this is that like that intuition gets cultivated when you like sit alone with yourself and like let yourself like feel your body and clear out all of those like resentments and unexplored things. That's all of the garbage that's like sort of like I like to think of like my head as like an attic that I need to like go clean out every day, or like my bedroom. It's like, okay, well, I need to pick up the clothes that I left on the floor yesterday. If you don't do that, then you just end up in like a hoarder house, right?
Yes.
And it's like a really scary thing to tackle. But if you do the maintenance of like everyday sort of cleaning, then you end up with like this beautiful clean room that you're excited to go into. And then when you're alone in that clean room, you can like really appreciate its beauty, but you can also like let new things come in. And to me, that's where intuition gets cultivated. And that's really how we determine desire.
Beautiful. So, how does one build the world they want?
I mean, I think it's kind of like what we're talking about, right? Is like following that intuitive sense within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of like bouncing in between action and refinement.
Mm.
And, you know, I'm no expert at this. It's something I'm like still very much teaching myself to do. But I know that when I'm feeling like directionless and confused, like almost the best thing I can do is just like sit alone with myself until I get like actually there's have you ever seen the movie there's a movie reference from this movie called Best in Show.
Yeah, yeah, best in show.
There's a scene where a character is sitting there just eating popcorn and she's like, my intuition is saying don't go right now, don't do anything. And that's often what my intuition is saying is like, okay, if you're fearful or scared or like unsure of what to do next, like just sit and wait. Like
Hmm.
something will come to you. And then when that thing comes to you and you feel excited about it and it's in alignment with your values and your mission, then then it's time to move forward with it. You know, there's this expanding and contracting thing happening again.
I think there's a dance of movement as relates to avoidance. And it's possible to convince yourself that you're like moving towards things when you're actually moving away from the discomfort of sitting with your intuition and sitting and listening to it. So, to world build accurately and I guess correctly, you have to keep things balanced. You can't be operating in avoidance. You can't be running away from that insight that is going to point you towards what you actually should be building.
Yes, absolutely. There also seems to be like quite a bit of intention because while like it's important to me when I feel misguided to like go within myself, I think often I'm also there are times where I'm looking for sort of inspiration too. And intentional inspiration doesn't come by just like going online and like looking at whatever appears. It's like this conscious looking for something. But I don't know, when we're looking maybe in terms of like world expansion, when we're looking for inspiration and something to like bring in newness and freshness to the thing that we're working on, that we're trying to like build, I think that we have to find it in a way that's like we're seeking something. We're not just hoping it'll appear in our laps. There's another part of world building that I think needs to be talked about, which is literally just like being in contact with people and expanding community. I think one way that one can world build is just by like going and talking to people that they don't know. You know, you don't want to be like weird and like talk to everybody that you see on the street and like sort of like annoy them. But when you're around people who are also looking for more people to talk to, like I think that there's something beautiful and exciting about finding new perspectives.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said about how people, every single person is a world unto themselves. And if we're walking around with noise canceling headphones, looking at our phones all the time, that's a form of world contraction. And it's okay to be doing that. Like sometimes that is the right thing for you to be doing is to be shutting off the outside world to focus on what you want to focus on. But as a default, as a thing that you're orienting towards, it's very important to be receptive to people as worlds because we learn so much from each other and everyone is so unique, so one of one. How can you not be at least a little bit fascinated by what somebody thinks and cares about and believes?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, not everyone's going to take to it, right? I think that that actually is like sort of what makes the online world really exciting to me is that like most people who are speaking online are looking to to have people respond. You know, they're like intentionally subjecting themselves to conversation, and obviously, like they don't always respond to you, but they're looking for your response, and so yeah, there's just like a constant opportunity for conversation there.
What are the attitudes you can hold that will expand your world?
So there's like a lot of talk about openness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the term open-mindedness is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's less about being open-minded and more about being open-hearted. Because obviously there's like a self-initiation into world expansion of like I'm seeking this intentionally. I'm looking for new things. I'm looking for new people. I'm looking for new communities and ideas. But you also have to have like a sort of mentality that invites it. And part of that is having this like sort of like internal sense of being open to it. And I don't think that it comes from open-mindedness. I think that open-mindedness is sort of like a trap to not having discernment. And this like you and I've talked about this a lot of like the distinction between judgment and discernment. And I think open mindedness can lead us into a place where we're like so obsessed with not being judgmental that we start to like lose our ability to decide what is good for us. I think open heartedness is sort of like an invitation to be introduced to something new. I think it's sort of an energetic expression that I'm open to new experiences and new ideas. I can't promise you that I'll adopt them or that I'll like them, but I'm interested in exploring them.
Yeah, I think this attitude, this orientation is so important. I want to ask you, like, as an example, like, let's say there's two types of women. One type of woman says and thinks and believes that men suck. Men are bad. They're out to get you. They are going to like lie to you to get in your pants. That all men care about is having sex with you. And the second type of woman thinks that men are amazing. Men are wonderful. They're strong and different and funny and also unique and charming and have all these wonderful qualities in them. Which woman do you think is going to have better romantic experiences, and which woman do you think is going to, what types of men are these women going to date?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? I mean, I think that like maybe it's obvious to me because I'm a big believer that our external world is a reflection of our internal world. Our beliefs are mirrored back to us through constant evidence, the external world. That's not an excuse to be naive when you see bad things occurring, when you see men behaving in a way that's like sort of frankly like abhorrent because it happens, you know, like we're all human and capable of a horrible behavior. But I think that we attract things when we speak them into existence. We attract certain types of people when we believe that they not only exist but are in mass. And so, I mean, yeah, I guess one way to build your world is simply by like choosing to see particular things in the world, and allowing that internal belief to be acted upon in the external.
Part of why having, I think, a really strong negative prediction or a really strong negative expectation about people or the world is that it prompts you, it sort of preempts you into rejecting people who don't fit your worldview and don't fit your model, don't fit your expectation. So if you're a man who thinks that women are shallow and you're insecure in how you look, and then you find a girl who like really is into you for your personality, you're gonna be like, what the hell is like going on? Like, what's wrong with this girl?
Yeah.
And it's some like you're gonna sabotage yourself in some way. subconsciously. It's not going to work out because
Yeah.
of the limiting belief.
You see that in the incel community a lot, actually. You see
Yeah.
them like, especially like when they respond to women who like don't have like a negative belief about men, maybe have like a more abstract idea of gender roles. They like just project their idea of what a woman is and how women treat them and behave so intensely. It's like it's jarring to be on the receiving end and be like, that is so different from the world that I
Yeah.
live, and you have this idea of who I am. And I genuinely believe that they're just like looking for affirmation that their worldview is the one true worldview. And
Yeah.
when there's any sort of abstraction, they get really like, I don't know, they get like really like aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the worldview is based on this idea that like women are like shallow in a way that's unfair to them. And their entire worldview is based on having really shallow perceptions of like what's valuable in a woman, like mainly her beauty and sex appeal.
Yeah.
And it's like if you can't get sex from a beautiful woman, that's a thing that should prompt you to level up, like straight up, like hit the
Right.
gym, get get to the barber, get some nicer clothes, like
I
level
don't
your
even,
game up.
is it even that, or is it like you should just like start thinking about the world differently? Like if you start like seeing people that like that, this is the other thing. This is part of having an open heart. Um, is that when you see people who act outside of your worldview,
Yeah.
and your immediate response is skepticism, understandable, right? But there's a level of like possibility and potential that like you might be shutting yourself off from
Yeah.
because you have this one perspective of how the world is. And so like I think there's like an element of surprise in world building as well, of or world expanding, where you're sort of forced to acknowledge that things might not be what you thought they were. And that there might be exceptions to this rule, or maybe there was no rule to begin with. You just made it up.
Yeah. I think that attitude is humility, which
Yeah,
is humility is world expanding in and of itself.
totally. Yeah, you're just like you're surrendering,
Yeah.
right?
And the mainstream culture is very adamantly against humility. I'll throw that out there. It's like humility is not seen as a virtue. It is not seen as a thing to cultivate. It is seen as often like weakness or like an insecurity. But it's a very powerful thing. Humility definitely opens doors, and it just enables the world to surprise you more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that like when it comes to like perspectives, that's so necessary. Like obviously like we know how humility like helps us in relationships. It makes us like more able to communicate with each other honestly. It like helps so much with repair. But from like inviting new ideas and perspectives element, or like from that sort of angle, I guess there's this beautiful curiosity that comes with humility, where when you don't go in assuming that you already know who this person's going to be or
Yes.
what this perspective is, there's this chance and this opportunity to like try it on and see if it fits you and see if you can feel into it. And like maybe you don't, maybe you're like, no, I already actually know that that this worldview doesn't suit me,
Yeah.
but I'm going to take this person at face value and not make any assumptions about them. And then you have the opportunity to like learn about them. There's just like you get so much more out of life when you're operating from this point of view, because you get to see like how that there's so many people who aren't like you, first off,
Yeah.
that like you may be thinking that you're seeing somebody who's had an experience the way you have, and then you see that's not true. That's like not that's not the truth of it. There's everybody's sort of having their own experience, and you can just watch them and enjoy them and be interested in them opposed to trying to project yourself onto them.
Yes. Speaking of attitudes that are kind of world expanding, I think enchantment is an important thing. Wonder is an important thing. Optimism is an important thing. I think cynicism is world constricting by definition almost.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Do you have any other like attitudes that you would sort of correlate with world expansion?
Well, I think just going back to humility, like the way humility is so powerful is that it puts you into a state of accepting reality versus lecturing reality. And that distinction is very powerful. That distinction carries, I think, a lot of water. When you're like, reality is the way it is, and I don't need to tell it it's wrong. I'm just accepting it and understanding it. That's a powerful thing. When you're in a state of trying to tell reality that it's wrong for defying your understanding of it, that's going to get you nowhere. That's going in circles away from the truth.
What are some actions that we can start to take towards world expansion?
Yeah. So there are a lot of specific actions you can take. There's a lot of specific orientations towards the world you can take. I want to talk about I'm going to ask you about spells you can cast.
Oh yeah, that's
We're going to come back to that in a second. But I want to begin with casting a wide net and breadcrumbs. So, what does it mean to cast a wide net? Casting a
um
wide net about your beliefs.
yeah. So for me, I talk a lot in fishing metaphors. I'm surrounded by young fishermen. They're everywhere. Um, turns out, get fish brain, start
Yeah.
fishing. But uh, to me, it's just like spread out. Like try a bunch of places that you haven't been before. Like just maybe this is like where intention actually can be like sort of thrown out the window, is that like when you're first starting, like I think it's actually like really nice to like just go places and just like try them for like getting over fears sake of just like sort of not having intention and just being like this is new so I'm saying yes to it.
Yeah.
I think that might be like a great place to start, and then you can refine and refine. But yeah, it basically just means that like try everything. I have this perspective when it comes to applying to jobs, where it's like you can always say no to a job if you change your mind about it. But like if there's an application and you're like it's sparking your interest, like why not just like throw your resume out there?
Yes.
Because you're allowed to change your mind. And so this sort of like abundance of applying, and then once you get a couple interviews, like getting to like refine. And I think you can sort of do that in a lot of different places. You can do that with trying to make friends. You can do that
Yes.
with going to like public events, where it's like you try everything and then you're like, okay, I have like five things that I attach to, and I'm gonna keep going to those things.
Yeah. Casting a wide net in that sense is just inherently world expanding. I think a lot about also desires and letting your desires be known, letting yourself be legible in your desires. Because you probably have a lot of desires that are like relational, things that you would not be able to fulfill by yourself, desires that necessarily require collaboration with someone else. And if you're hiding those desires, the only people who would ever be able to fulfill them are genuine mind readers. And genuine mind readers probably exist, but they're like one in, 1 in 100 million or something. You're not going to be running into very many of them.
Yeah.
And when you let the universe know your desires, you actually are kind of like putting out a homing beacon for people with similar desires to respond to you.
Yeah. And there's also another thing. I'm saying this because I had a hard time with this. You have to say it more than once. Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think that I when I started doing this, I would say it one time and then I'd be like, someone will hear me. And it's like no one's gonna hear you. Like you have to tell everybody. You have to tell everybody that this is your interest. And some people are gonna find it annoying and some people are like gonna reject you or like not be reject you sort of like subconsciously by just like solely just not being interested in what you want. You might even get a couple people who are like, you can't do that. That sucks. It's also like a really good exercise in ego strength, which will
Hmm.
probably be required of you if you
Yeah.
receive the thing that you want.
Yeah.
Which is like in my experience, like the truth of like everybody who gets what they want is like they're like I had to build a lot of ego strength to get there, and now it's like I have to maintain it. But eventually you'll tell somebody what you want and they'll be like, "Hey, I have that." And maybe at first they're like, "I'm not sure if I want to give it to you yet." And then maybe like a year down the road, they're like, "No, I really like you and I think I'm going to give it to you." and
Yeah.
and then they do. And like, but you have to tell everybody.
You have to tell people, you have to let your desires be known. You have to open yourself up for judgment or attack. And you have to cultivate, as you said, the ego strength to ignore all false things. And somebody telling you that, like, you're a bad person for wanting something that's like a completely normal human thing. You need to be able to have the backbone to say that's actually bullshit. That what you're saying to me and the thing that I want is good, and I'm going to keep moving after it, and you can't stop me. Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's very like Marty Supreme coded. I don't know if you saw Marty Supreme, but
I
very much
haven't.
there that he his whole like mentality is literally just that I don't allow like self-doubt to enter my
Mm,
consciousness. And this like
yeah,
nobody can tell me that my mission is not mine.
I've been seeing so much of that energy in so many successful people. Like Kobe Bryant said, what makes him confident is when he walks into a room, he knows that he worked harder than everyone in the room.
Yes. And like for some people that's like just measurables, right? Like it sounds like for him it's measurables. It's like I know that I put more time in. I know that I got up earlier. I know
Yeah.
that I know I did more because I can look at it and I can measure it. And for some people, like for me, I think it's less about measurables and it's more about like just a deep sense of belief and like unshakable confidence.
Yes.
And it's not exactly a measurable as much as it is like an energy.
There was that quote from the Nvidia CEO where he was in an interview on a podcast, and he was getting questioned about his company's strategy and like how it might go awry, and he just responded, that kind of a loser premise and loser mentality makes no sense to me. Like I didn't wake up a loser. Like that, he straight up just said it like that, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a person who is going to, create his own world.
Yes. That's like what it takes and what it requires. Yeah. So
And a lesser person
that's an attitude.
would have conceded the frame there. They would have been like, yeah, maybe doubt is important here. Maybe what we're gonna do is gonna fail horribly, and that also opens the door for failure and things to go awry.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're sort of creating opportunity by simply thinking it or yeah, just allowing that idea to enter your consciousness.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think And obviously, like there's like a level of like delusion that's sort of required of that state of mind. Not everything that someone wants is like requires that level of delusion. These
Yeah.
people are doing like completely world-changing innovations that require you to like really believe that something that doesn't exist can. So we don't all need to be at that level, but there is like a certain, I find that very inspiring,
Yeah. You can feel the
because
fire.
yeah, and I can sense in me a desire to like be at that level of self-assurance.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. There's also like I think it's a lyric about how from a song in maybe like the 60s about how love is only for the lucky and the brave. And when you hear that, you can have, two different responses. Like one response is, my God, that's so unfair and horrible. And oh my God, I'm never going to have love. Or you can say, I guess I'll just be fucking lucky and brave then.
So true. Yeah, no, my immediate response was like, gotta be brave. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, I mean, I don't even know if I think about, I don't even know if I think about lucky when I think about love. I mean, maybe I should. You know, the incels love to, actually, the wallowers, the online wallowers love to talk about this.
Mm,
They're like, they love to be like, you just got lucky.
yeah.
And then I contemplate often whether I got
Yeah.
it's like, did
Well,
I get lucky? How much of it is luck? Um, but I think that in terms of like attitudes, yeah, like
yeah.
one has to believe that they are lucky to receive random blessings.
Luck is a skill. People don't think of it as a skill, but it totally is. Um, okay. Spells you can cast, Shelby. Tell me about some spells you can cast for world expansion.
Well, that was one spell. Like creating mindsets, I think, is in and of itself a spell. The same way that like speaking things into existence is a spell. Um, Words are spells. That's why it's called spelling. And uh,
Mm,
so, if you hear yourself over and over and over again talking about how you can't do it, caught myself doing it yesterday.
yeah.
There's a real danger there. Like you're kind of setting yourself up to fail. So, words as spells, huge. Simultaneously, there's sort of like an ability for verbal communication to like take the weight out of some things. So,
Hmm.
for me, sometimes I find myself like spiraling in thoughts about myself, negative thoughts or like insecurities, paranoias. And then as soon as I say them out loud, they become humorous because they are absurd and make no sense. So there's maybe like words as spell breaking, you
Yes.
know?
Shattering illusions.
Yes, yeah. Not allowing the mind to trick you by bringing it from ether to earth. And then, when you're looking at it in front of you, you can see that it's like completely misshapen and doesn't make any sense. So I think that's one thing. And I also think that like naming things, just like being able to identify what something is like hugely helpful to whether you need to keep it or not.
Can you give me an example of naming something?
Yeah, so I think that sometimes when I have an insecurity,
Hmm.
I can't tell that it's an insecurity in my mind. So it'll play out as sort of like a logical reasoning thing. Like the doubt will play out in my mind as like, this will be better for everybody. And then once I'm able to express it verbally as like, no, this is an insecurity, I can identify it as an insecurity and name it, then it just like loses its weight. It's like, oh, that's a stupid little like fly I have to swat. That's not
Yeah.
that's not something that's going to be useful to me.
Yeah. Telling people, often like women, some of my insecurities, like has a very powerful way of lightening them and kind of just like curing them almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't need somebody, I think this is a misconception too, is that like when people express their insecurities to you, sometimes receiving them can be like you feel this need to be like, no, like no, that's not true about you. And like there's some niceness to that, but I think more often than not, people just need to like reflect it and have somebody else go, ah, yes, that is an insecurity. I see it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's not real. And now we all know and we can move on. And we can like help each other identify it in each other. You know, it like becomes like a relationship builder if you're working with the right person who's not going to weaponize it against you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great intuitive marker of trust in relationships is like, can you express insecurities within the relationship honestly and then have it just kind of like be dissolved by the expression versus like, oh, this person's going to try to attack me for it or something. Yeah.
Or hold on to it and use it later when they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable or threatened by me for some reason.
There might be there's probably a discernment thing here, but I feel like at least in my life, like maybe like 95% of the people, 99% of the people in my life, it's like if I express an insecurity to them, it just has that like positive healing effect. Like I don't really feel like I'm I don't know, at danger of being attacked for expressing insecurities very much. And you know, the more you I think grow and kind of go through life and just let your insecurities be known and released to the world. Like for a very long time, I was like kind of insecure about my hands. I was like, my hands feel kind of like dainty and feminine. And this was not a perception that is like shared by really anyone else out there as far as I can tell. It was just like completely in my head. And then like I started just kind of like saying it out loud and it just kind of like dissolved. It like wasn't a thing anymore. And now it's like I'm just like moving through the world with like a greater acceptance about my body and how it looks and feels. And that's nice.
I'm thinking about when somebody says something that's like true and they're insecure about it,
Hmm.
and like what how we should respond to them. To me, like what takes the weight out of it is when they say something that's like true about them, but they don't like see it as a negative thing. Like I love when someone says like mentions an insecurity of mine as like a positive attribute. That like
Yeah.
or like compliments me on something that like I see as negative, but they like love it about me.
Yeah.
So like if it were true that you had feminine hands, like what if somebody was like, "Ah, I love your feminine hands."
Yes, my soft and dainty hands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so approachable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's something about I think being like just accepted for who you are and like the wholeness of it, being loved for your rough edges specifically, because that's a kind of love that is it's deeper and truer. It's like it's not just falling in love with the I don't want to call it an illusion, but the sort of like the presentation of your best attributes, because it's very easy for people to only see your best side because that's kind of how we lead in the world often is we curate and present ourselves in the best way possible. And when someone loves you for those rough edges, it really hits differently. World
Well,
expanding.
it's like psychologically world expanding, right? That like our
Yeah.
self-concept can change. These things
Yes.
that we're worried about can their effect on us can change. And maybe we can see ourselves more honestly. Because I think that there is something valuable about seeing something that's true about us that we may be insecure about. And just being like, this is a truth about me, and I don't actually have to feel any sort of way about it. Or maybe I can love myself for it, or yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I can just feel neutral about it. Maybe it's just something that's true.
Would it be fair to call you a somewhat stubborn and disagreeable woman?
Yeah, totally.
And has that been a challenging thing sometimes for you to like accept or feel loved for?
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's like it's so difficult. I think maybe I don't even know if it has to do with the fact that I'm a woman that makes it like so difficult. I really think that it might just be the I think it just maybe sort of the reality of being somebody who likes truth more than they like uh,
Hmm.
making other people feel
Harmony.
comfortable. Yeah, harmony. That's a great word. I I'm just much more interested in like coming to a correct conclusion, or even like an understanding. I'm a little bit better at understanding
Yeah.
people, or seeking an understanding than I am seeking genuine harmony.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a terrible, terrible insecurity, and now I'm getting quite a bit of validation for it, so it's
I
really
was
nice.
gonna say I love this aspect of you, and it's something that I think we resonate with each other. Is we're both people who value truth over harmony, and we're also both people who have been like hurt and burned by that pursuit.
Well, it's not great for relationship building, really. Like, I think that,
No, it's
especially
not.
amongst women,
Or in group conformity too, for that matter.
no, no, you're gonna get roasted by somebody if you disagree with them and you're like within like an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think, but that's like in and of itself spell breaking too. I think when we have an idea of who we are and what we should
Hmm.
believe, and we start stepping outside of that and saying, maybe what if I looked at this differently? Is it maybe true that I could look at this differently and not be threatened by it and not feel scared by it, not feel worried that I might get ostracized for it?
Yeah.
That's when we can start like tiptoeing into other perspectives. And it's not that we have to adopt them. Again, like I don't think we have to adopt everything that we explore, but we can do it with an open heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amen, sister.
thanks. What other spells do we have? Let's see. Oh yeah, calling yourself out on your bullshit. Really good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
So this is, I think, a skill everyone needs to cultivate, which is you need to know when you are lying to yourself. You need to be aware of the fact that you have a deep and innate capacity to do so at a sophisticated way, highly sophisticated level that is very likely to be able to fool your ability to detect it. And how do you sort of resolve this internal tension? We have so much cultural energy about just kind of training us to rationalize inactivity and a lack of action. And the human brain is like very, very nimble at how coming up with a story for how the laziest thing to do is the right thing. How like you don't want to get involved in this situation, or like you don't need to speak your mind, or you don't need to be honest about this. And if you listen to that, and that is bullshit, your life is going to be pretty stagnant because you are not moving, you are living a lie.
I think that this can come in a way where we like think of ourselves as more positive or like have a image of self that's very different from how we live. Example from my personal life. When I was like 35 pounds overweight, I was like very sure that I was at a healthy weight and skinny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt in my mind, wouldn't change the size of my pants, was wearing pants way too small for my body. Like, really just like had this illusion because I self-identified as thin and I wasn't. And I could not like break that idea in my mind because I'd been thin my entire life. And just like, that's like a really like simple to me, like obvious truth of one's self. And it's pretty measurable. You can
Yeah.
like step on a scale and see that it's not the truth of
Yeah.
yourself. And the only way that I could like get to a healthy weight and treat my body in a healthy way was to like completely rupture this like self-concept that I had or change my body to make it like suit the self-concept, which
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just like, I had to be able to look at myself and go, like, you're lying. Like, you have an idea of who you are. And this happens a lot with people who identify as being good people. You have an idea of who you are, and your actions and your form do not represent that. They're not a reflection of that idea. So it's just an idea, it's not a truth. And you can make something true in your mind, but the world will know, right?
Picking up on spells you can cast, the last one is kind of a strategy for how to call yourself out on your bullshit, which is picking a direction and walking straight. And picking a direction and walking straight is about trusting your intuition, trusting the fundamental nature of reality, which is that it will give you feedback when you act, and trusting that you will be able to walk towards a destination and make progress towards that destination through the movement. And bullshit in general, when you're believing your own bullshit, you're stuck in either the same types of cycles of unproductive actions, or you're stuck in a state of inaction. And picking a direction and walking in a straight line, that gets you out of both of those problems. It just has to be, you have to be doing something different than what you're already doing. Like, that's what's important, is picking a direction that's new and walking in that direction. That's going to change something for you by definition. There's no way it's not going to expand your world.
Yeah. And having the discipline to um, walk forward, I think
Yeah.
this is uh, this is my bullshit, actually. My bullshit is that I pick a direction, and then as I'm walking, I get bored or distracted, and I start like being like, I could veer off this way, and that would be a little bit more stimulating, maybe.
Yeah.
Because sometimes walking is boring. And sometimes doing what you,
And the doubts creep in.
yeah, the doubts creep in, or like the consistency is uncomfortable. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I find a lot of comfort in chaos. And usually, like, actually working towards the things that you like genuinely want, like really deeply want, requires quite a bit of like comfort with sort of like routine and consistency, and like working on the same thing every day. Or at least that's the projects that I work towards. And so yeah, like, I think there's a level of focus required in being able to like choose a desire and really go as far as you need to achieve it.
Hmm. Tell me your thoughts about knowing when to abandon the path versus knowing when to be patient. And like, how does delayed gratification fit into this too?
Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? Is that like you have to have let something you have to walk long enough along the same path to be able to get to your destination. If you keep like veering off, you will probably never get there. You'll just be wandering through the woods directionless, and you might like sort of like dizzy yourself in this way where you don't even know what you were trying to accomplish in the first place. So you have to get comfortable with the fact that you're not going to feel like accomplished and gratified every moment of working towards something. It's like very painful, and when we're trying to expand our worlds, it's super uncomfortable at first. It's really sort of like undesirable, to be honest. And the joy of it doesn't really come until way later. I was saying to a friend, a mutual friend of ours, the other day, that I'm a slow manifester.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it's just an observation I've made for myself, is that I would love to be somebody who like thinks something, gets excited about it, and then it appears in 6 months. But it feels like the gifts that I ask for take 2 to 5 years to appear. And
Yeah.
sometimes I've forgotten that I even asked for them. And so I think part of that is my own discomfort with delayed gratification. That, like, I have a hard time setting goals or finding interests that are long term, even though that's seemingly when I receive the most rewards, is when I work on something for an extended period of time. And yeah, I think when it comes to knowing when to be patient or when to abandon, to me, that's like totally intuitive. That's like most of the time, the answer for me is be patient,
Hmm.
because I have a tendency to want to jump ship on
Yeah,
things.
same.
Yeah. It's like I have this weird thing where I just want things to happen faster than they do.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'm working on something or working in a field, or usually it's like a sort of like massive idea. Like I want to work in corporate. I want to work a corporate job. That's something for me where I'll get a pang of like, this isn't for you. Like you're
Hmm.
going the wrong way. And that to me is very, very intuitive. Like that's like what happens when I'm meditating type of shit.
Hmm.
What do you, how do you make sense of like compound building in the way that when we're world expanding, there's sort of like this stacking quality of things sort of building on top of each other?
Yeah. So I think there's this dynamic. It's sort of you could use the words momentum or inertia, but there's this dynamic where when you're world expanding, other forms of world expansion naturally open up, and that leads to an upward spiral of continual world expansion and continual new ways of thinking about things. As an example of world expansion, one exercise in world expansion that I did was I got into the world of running. And the more I got into the world of running when I quit drinking, the more it implied other parallel worlds that I should be exploring and expanding into. One of those worlds was kind of health, nutrition, and cooking. And that has been a really beneficial world to explore. And it obviously is a good skill to have. It's very real. It feels amazing to make a healthy, delicious meal and enjoy it, knowing every single thing that you've put into the food and into the meal. And that's that kind of like parallel thing where it's like we're stacking acts of world expansion on top of each other. And it's they keep as your world, like you kind of imagine like the constricted world, and it's expanding, and maybe it's expanding in a way that kind of like looks almost like a tumor or something, like growing out of like a person's head. And when that happens, it's like there's surface area, like here there's new surface area, here there's new surface area, there's new surface area on that side, and all of those things are new worlds that you can expand. And it's like as I became, more and more into running, I lost a lot of weight. I became more attractive. That expanded my self confidence, which expanded my romantic, world. I started dating much more attractive and interesting women because I had, I saw myself as their equal and that I had something to offer to them. And like the cooking thing also like comes back to that. It's like women love when you make them a delicious home cooked meal, and vice versa too. It's like I can appreciate other people's cooking way more because I know what goes into it now, from a lived experience. So it's like all these things are stacking on top of each other. Do you have any thoughts about compound building?
Yeah, I think of it as sort of like a web. Like when I think of socially expanding my world, there's this like amazing thing that happens when you connect with people, is that like when you connect with a new person, you don't just get access to them, but you get access to like their entire network. And we're always sort of like latching onto each other, and then they have all of these
Yeah.
tentacles, and then it's like, oh, everybody knows each other, you know? And there's this spreading out that happens amongst people and connections. And we have like this chance to like meet our like soulmates, meet like our, you know, these people that are gonna like be in our lives forever, just by meeting
Yeah.
one person. And so yeah, to me, like when I think of compound building, I think of this sort of like stacking newness and newness and newness and new relationships on top of each other. And the magic that is like all of us sort of like holding hands together.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. How do you see men and women as expanders for each other? Talking about sort of like relationships.
Yeah. So women and men, we had talked a little bit about femininity and masculinity and the ways they're in alignment recently. I think that women raise the ceiling for men. Women inspire men. Women make men want to be better and to do more. I'm thinking about the stereotypical like dude's first apartment and guys like sitting in an unfurnished living room on like a lazy boy with a TV and a video game console and like a six pack of beer.
Yep.
And it's like that is the masculine brain that has not yet been elevated by the presence and taste of a woman. And I think on the flip side, men provide a level of stability and consistency that is really beneficial for women because women I think have more intense highs and more intense lows and a kind of greater range of like emotional intensity just kind of like as part of the nature of the monthly cycle. You know, there's highs and lows built into that. It's women are in different energetic states much more than men, I would say. And so men and women together naturally expand each other's worlds because we offer things that we don't have on our own. It's about giving and receiving.
You know how you have this like first apartment for the men? Can you create like a similar, do you have a similar analogy for men raising the or raising the floor for
The
women?
floor for women. I mean, there's this I saw a tweet that was just like every hot girl has like the messiest apartment and bedroom you've ever seen and there's like no surface area that is like uncovered by things.
Yeah, I saw that like nowhere that she can put a cup down on.
Yeah. And I think there's something true to that. Like a lot of women have just kind of this like overwhelm with the sort of like state of being a modern woman. You know, it's like you've got dozens of makeup products like all over the bathroom counter. You've got clothes everywhere, and there's a lot of just kind of like chaos and overflowingness, and it's just a lot, right? It's just a lot. And I think when men and women like live together, there's like a natural harmony in the middle where the woman is going to have just naturally like more aesthetics and more objects and more maximalism. I think women basically like gravitate towards maximalism and men gravitate towards minimalism. These are like broad generalizations. They don't apply to everyone, obviously. There's a huge spectrum. But I think there's something to that generalization. And like it's the way men would like raise the floor for women is about kind of balancing that chaos, as well as like when a woman is having like a really low energy day, like let's say she's, you know, menstruating and she's got that doom and gloom brain right now. A man is going to be able to say, you know, you can just sink into my energy. because I am not in that brain right now. Um, I have more energy than you, and I can give it to you. I can do things for you. I can take care of you, and that's a beautiful harmony.
Yeah, there's like a beautiful picking up the slack that I think men give women.
Yeah.
When, because, I think women tend to go within their cycles through these like phases of like being able to get everything done, like being able to like perfect everything. Like when we're well, things are like very tidy and very taken care of, and we're like on it.
So on it.
But when,
But so beyond the way men are on
yeah, just like we're
it.
on it, and then when we've sort of dipped out of that hormonal high and start depleting in supply, it becomes like very, very difficult to like take care of ourselves. At least that's my experience, and that's the experience that's been expressed to me by a lot of women. And so, yeah, there is this like beautiful like hormonal stability that men have. And because of that, like our downfalls don't seem to carry so much weight, right? Because like we make up for each other's lack in this beautiful way. And then we're sort of able to, well, and even like just from a hormonal standpoint of like understanding each other, I think that that in and of itself is very world expanding of like
Yes.
coming to understand that like you experience the same hormonal cocktail on a daily basis, and that like the way that you experience like emotional shift is very different from the way that women experience emotional shift. Jack and I talk about this
Yeah.
a lot, that like when he's feeling a difficult feeling, it's usually been building for a while, and he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to see it because his internal hormonal experience is the same every day. And so it
Yeah.
like
It's
takes
kind of like the pee under the like layer of mattresses, right?
exactly. No, that's exactly, and that's I think why women are always like men are so unemotional, and it's like no, it like they're like not feeling so much fluctuation internally, so it like takes a little bit of time for
Yeah.
emotions to reveal themselves until they're like sort of like overwhelming and like must be dealt with. There's this like superpower that you guys have because of your physical bodies where you're literally able to like ignore emotions and like get
Yeah.
something done. And I think that like obviously there's like some pitfalls to that, but generally speaking, like it actually is like quite a superpower. Women, on the other hand, are like a little bit more emotionally impulsive and volatile because a lot of our emotional instability is like comes from a hormonal cycle. And many times we discover that like, oh, that thing that I was feeling like wasn't, that's not actually how I was feeling. That was like a sort of like
Yeah.
enhanced response due to my physical body.
Amen. Let's see. Oh yeah. So okay, world expansion, masculinity and femininity. I think there's also this like element of you can be changed by specific like people, by specific romantic relationships. And something I've felt very acutely in my own life is that all of the best women like I've dated or been friends with, like they really have elevated me in very specific ways, in like singular ways. And there's something I think quite beautiful about that. It's it's something I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. Like I received this world expansion from the like essential nature of who these people I cared about, what their essential nature was like. Do you feel that kind of same pattern where like men have expanded your world? Like what does it feel like as a woman to like have your world expanded by a man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a lot of that stability that you talk about. I think it's also just like very healing. I mean, I don't even know if this is gendered as much as it is just like my personal experience. I had the men in my family. in my immediate family caused me quite a bit of like psychological damage when I was in my
Hmm.
upbringing. And so just like the experience of getting to be like an adult woman who is like loved well by many men has been like very psychologically healing.
Mm.
So
It's like the old story is being revealed as bullshit.
yes, and like, you know, I like adore my father-in-law. I haven't talked to my dad in like over 10 years. And like I get to have a dad again. I got married in August and like there's a very big realization of like getting to have a dad again. So in that way it feels really gendered and like specific to me.
Yeah.
And but I don't really know how that applies as much to like world expanding. Like what is it specifically about the women who've expanded? What is it about their like why their womanness? If that if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it's there's something about nurturing and drawing out. Like that's what I feel is like women have this kind of gravity towards them, like a deep and powerful gravity, and women draw things out of you. And when women draw things out of you, it becomes known. Like that's really what it is. Like the unknown within is becoming known. And when you know something is inside of you, that gives you an awareness of it. It gives you an opportunity to learn about it, and like recognize these like aspects of yourself, which are good aspects and virtuous aspects that you want to grow and lean into more. I think like generosity is a really big thing that like women have kind of like drawn out of me and like nurtured in me, because like women respond to generosity. It's like they're training you to be more generous, and that's like the best way to be. It's like you want to be more generous. You want to like have a sense of abundance in your love and what you have to offer, and that's something that like existed within me, but it had to be drawn out. Like I don't think I could necessarily like I couldn't do that on my own. Like I needed someone to like recognize and sort of like pull that thread to just keep making it bigger and more known. And there's something also about like the culture where we kind of just have this idea that men and women are like exactly the same as each other in the mainstream culture, and that's like what we were taught growing up. And like leaning into this like deeply felt belief and truth that men and women aren't the same, um, it enabled me, I think, to like start recognizing and responding to that kind of gravity a lot more. It's like if I was thinking of like women as being the same as me but just with like different body parts, I wouldn't have as much awareness of the energetic polarity that's pulling out these things, that's trying to draw out all these good things and trying to get me to be more ambitious and just like all around better. It's like women like really want men to be great. Like that's actually like all of the complaining about like quote unquote mediocre men that you see in the discourse. That is proof that women want men to be great. And as a man, you need to listen to that's the message you need to listen to. Women want you to be great. Don't listen to I'm mediocre and bad. Listen to they want me to be great
Yeah.
and respond to it.
They're kind of asking you to push back on them, right? Like they're being
Yeah.
like they're saying like you're being mediocre and they want you to have this attitude. And this is actually something that I feel super inspired by men,
Yeah.
like really healthy men, is this attitude of that's not true about me. And
Yeah, you're wrong.
yeah,
Women love it when you tell them you're
and
wrong.
I'm gonna prove you wrong. And I'm gonna show you that
Yeah.
you don't know what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
I feel like that's something I feel very inspired by men in their ability to like not only prove themselves wrong, but prove other people wrong. I think I'm more inclined towards proving myself wrong than other people because it's kind of like, like you can never make the masses happy, you know? So
Hmm.
I feel a little bit more, uh, it feels a little bit more like encouraging to work with my own insecurities and anxieties than to like worry about how other people feel about me. But yeah, I think male courage, when I think about like being changed by men, I think that they've given me like quite a bit of courage and inspired me to think of myself differently. And I think that's the magic of like love in general is that like
Hmm.
when somebody loves you and loves you like in your entirety, not like some image that you've cultivated for them,
Yeah.
you start to be like, oh, I maybe I'm not so bad. Like maybe I am like incredibly lovable. This person who I admire and like who
Yeah.
adore and am interested in loves me, and so maybe I should love me too. On that note,
Beautiful.
how do we? Maybe it's not so. On that note, changing the subject. Um,
Yeah, on that note, changing the
I'm
subject.
changing. I'm going to change the subject, um, and that's how do can we get a little bit more specific on ways in particular sections of our lives, ways that we can expand our world. So maybe we can start with love because I think that that is a way that we can expand our self concept and also
Hmm.
expand other areas of our lives.
So, specific ways for love to be world expanding or to expand your world through love. To me, it seems like just having a default lovingness of people really helps. Like I love so many different things about so many different women, and I'm just like going to the heterosexual relationship frame here, but I'm attracted to so many different things and different attributes in different women. It feels very abundant to me. There's beautiful women everywhere with incredible minds and personalities and spirits, and everyone has like something to offer. And because of that, I am like seeing these really attractive things in all sorts of people. It gives me a feeling of abundance when I'm in the romantic world and like dating people and getting to know them. I'm it's like just world expansion all the way down. And feeling that abundance, like that deeply felt abundance of love is actually really powerful because it makes you less attached to like specific outcomes with specific people. And I think like men and women alike have had like really bad, like probably have like some experience with like either being a person who was too clingy or having someone who was really clingy clinging to them. And um, this gets you out of that.
I think that's true. For me, I think I just generally feel that like love is very world expanding in like my self concept and also in like my it feels so much like a compounding thing where it's like the more that we love each other, the more the other things seem to appear.
Yeah. And the more love we have to give.
Yes, it's like it's really just like this like never-ending fountain. It like starts as like a trickle and then like it just like becomes like totally booming and blossoming and like
Yeah.
overflowing. And I mean, there's the very literal heterosexual world expanding of love, which is like literally children. Like you are literally like
Hmm.
making the next world.
Yeah.
And dude, I mean, I don't have kids yet, but it's crazy to me like how much people have like sort of like demonized the experience of parenthood because like
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that like people who have kids feel this way. I think I'm good at conceptualizing things in a way that like makes me feel like a sense of awe towards things in general.
Hmm.
And so like even though I don't have kids yet, I already feel that sense of like you're creating, like you're literally creating life. Like you're literally like
Yeah.
you're embodying God. You're You are
Right.
manifesting.
Bringing a new spirit into the world.
You're manifesting the future. Like you're literally like doing the most spiritual act that you can possibly do. You're
Yeah.
expanding the world in the most literal way. Um, and that, I mean, that feels absolutely magical.
Yeah. This feels very like potent energetically after Mother's Day,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's just like feeling, that connection to your mother, and like, she carried you inside of her for 9 months and went through a difficult labor to bring you into the world, and that's a beautiful thing. That's an act of love. That's an act of God. It's all pointing towards life and goodness.
Yeah, and in the way that like we all have a little world inside of us that other people can explore, like you get to like make those little worlds and put them
Yes.
make them exist in the big world and that's that's so amazing. So that's how we do it in love. How do we do it in work and in like our day-to-day bullshit?
Yeah. Work, I think about work as just kind of like it is a world. Like there's so many different work worlds. Your office is a world. The people you work with are a world. Your customers are worlds unto themselves. And thinking about your work as an opportunity for world expansion is a really powerful thing, because a lot of people have like really disenchanted views about their work. And I think you can kind of like feel when you like walk into a coffee shop and like the barista is just like mentally checked out and doesn't like give a shit about you or like what they're doing. And you can feel the difference between when you walk into one where a person is like, "Hello, like welcome, like what can, what experience can we create together today? Like what can we do that's going to be nice?" And yeah, career is it's just a lot of world expansion in and of itself. It's something we should take for not take for granted. We should take it as an opportunity for intentional world expansion. And sometimes that means, you have to change pawns, because each work, each company, each job is its own little pond, and it has different shapes and surface areas.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have this habit of when I meet new people, and
Mm-hmm.
because I like small talk, I find it, I really like to understand context
Yeah.
of like where people are coming from, like how they're spending their day to day. So I am sad that the question, "What do you do for work?" has become like such like a stock question for meeting new people because I actually am
Mm-hmm.
interested. But when I ask people and they give me this response of like, "Oh, I do this thing that I don't really care about or like, and it's just for money." Um, I have this habit of asking people, "Do you like it?" Um, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's me sort of like subconsciously trying to get them to shatter, like getting to shatter the illusion that like you have to hate your job,
Yeah.
or that like I think some people have never considered that like it's like, well,
Right.
I don't need to like my job. Why would I like my job? It's stupid.
Yeah.
And I think I have this like desire to shatter that illusion. And to me, it's like as a world expansion concept, like work can be world expanding if you don't treat it like something that's just going to make you money. Because
Yeah.
if it's just something to make you money, then I don't know, like you could do a bunch of things that are probably really terrible for the world, you know, like
Yeah.
uh,
And terrible for
and
you.
terrible for you, and things you don't care about, things you don't like. You're just probably going to gravitate towards the thing that makes you the most money. Um, but if you see it as an opportunity to flex your skills, make the world a better place, expand your own world and your own network, then your focus is totally shifted. And I also just think that like how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. And so, do you want to spend it? Do you want to spend 40 hours a week, your entire life,
Yeah.
doing something that you don't really care about? You know?
Parallel to work as a form of world expansion is also like volunteering and kind of charity work and things like that as world expanding. And I think just like volunteering is about giving your time and showing that you're working towards things that are in alignment with your values and priorities in life. And you don't need money to volunteer. You just need time. And yeah, I think there's even beyond like structured volunteering efforts is you can be generous with your time. You can be charitable to the world in a very individualized and one-to-one way, and that is in and of itself world expanding. Like helping your friend improve her like resume so she can get a job, or send off a job application with a little more confidence. Like that's world expanding.
Yeah. And, what goes around comes around, like
Yeah,
when you help people, things come back to
yeah,
you. And so there may not be an immediate reward for generosity, but there always is a reward,
yes,
in whatever form it comes, you know. I think also this
yeah,
is just another example of like how we spend our time and expressing our values through giving. And I think it's more interesting to me. It's less interesting to me when somebody does charity work, and more interesting to me what kind of charity work they choose to do, because that to me is like a
yeah.
very clear expression of their values and the hierarchy with which they hold their values. And I think that when we're living in an expression of self, of like deep authenticity, then the things that we choose to give away are like a very clear representation of what we care about most.
Absolutely. What do you think about value? You said the words value and value hierarchy, and I want to touch on money as value. What are different forms of value? Actually, let's keep it broad.
So I think there's like obviously moral values. That's like to me most
Hmm.
exciting. I think that money can be like an expression of moral values, but I think it also can just be like a measure of something's value. And those are like the main values that I think of. Do you think of anything else?
I can also think of like attention as value. Like receiving someone's attention is very valuable. That's something I like take seriously as a writer, and I'm sure I know you do too. Is that it's valuable to have people's attention on you, and that inspires you to do better work, and take your work more seriously because that's the level of mutual respect that creates world expansion between writer and reader.
Yeah, and that is like one of the few ways that I do see like sort of numbers and interactions as being sort of like a good measure of whether what you're putting out in the world is valuable. Obviously, there's lots of people who are putting rage bait and like horrible, you know,
Yeah.
destructive propaganda out there.
Negative
And
energy,
and that all
hatred.
gets like quite a bit of attention too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a balance between did I am I saying something that's like of use to the world? That seems to be like an internal question.
Yeah.
And then did I say it in a way that was well communicated? And that seems to be a little bit more measurable through interactions, all of your data online. But yeah, I'm like pretty capitalistic in my perspective. I actually do really like money as like a, a value measurement.
Well, money is information. It's like some of the it's a universal language for information too. Like $1 is $1. Everyone has a personal relationship to what $1 is and what $1 means, but it's a very powerful way of conveying and showing value and how much you appreciate something. Like if people are willing to give you money for your writing, that tells you that your writing is valuable.
Yes. Yeah. It to me is like a very clear transaction. And I can understand like what whether I'm doing something that other people see as valuable
Yeah.
or not through money. Um, Obviously, I don't think that that's true in all scenarios, but I think that's really true in the arts. Because some, especially like products, sometimes it's just really, really great advertising.
Yeah.
But when it comes to world building, I think that like money, I mean, obviously, like the more money you have to spend, like the more that you can like spend on like sort of experience and time and
Yeah. It's kind of a surface area of your world type of thing.
yeah, it's to me it's like quite an opportunity. But also like people go into like these states of like hoarding mass amounts of money when they're really panicked and like actually in like sort of a contracted state. So it's not like a
Yeah.
guarantee. I think people have this idea that when they become rich, they're going to like be this certain version of themselves, this like enlightened version of themselves that like doesn't actually exist
Right.
and like hasn't been cultivated through practice. And so they like think they're gonna be super generous. They have like, yeah, they have this whole like enlightened idea of themselves as a rich person. When in reality, like you're still you. You just have money now. And you're gonna spend it the way old you spent it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to world expansion, like that I think sort of enhances the or it emphasizes the necessity of courage and facing fear because it doesn't really matter if you have money or not. If you don't have courage, you're not going to do anything with it.
Amen. Yeah. And money, money is while it is information and it conveys value, it is not morally good in and of itself. I think it's like it's sort of amoral.
Yes.
It's not immoral. I also don't think it's immoral to have lots of money or to have earned lots of money. Like that's just a reflection of the value you've created in the world. But it's all of our discussions around money often impose this like false framework that it either is morally good or morally bad to have money, like inherently.
Yes.
And that's just a false frame. It's like money is amoral, as I see it.
Yeah, totally. And like, you know, it's like what we were saying, like value in the monetary sense literally just means that like people want more of it. It doesn't mean that it's like morally good or like
Yeah,
necessarily valuable. It's just that like
yeah,
people have decided they want more of it. And so yeah, I am in total agreement. I think it's just a representation of resources. And what you do with those resources, especially when you have an abundance of those resources, says more about you than like the resources themselves.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Aesthetic challenges everywhere too. You can like be a billionaire and have really bad taste,
Yeah. Yeah. We see it all the time.
and you can be poor and have really bad taste.
Yeah. And you can be poor and have really amazing taste. And also, you don't have to you don't have to be able to afford the things that you really, really want
Yeah,
to be able to like make a beautiful space, you
correct.
know.
Absolutely. Let's see. I want to ask you about curation as a dimension of world expansion.
Um, I think this brings us back to like that sort of like exhale and contraction of cutting away what is unnecessary. When we expand, we collect a bunch of things, we bring a bunch of things with us. And then when we go into that contraction mode, we start to cut away the things that don't belong to us and aren't quite right for us. And I think that just makes us a lot more whole than sort of staying in this constant state of like keeping everything. And also there's also like a this goes back to intention as well when we're expanding of like being curating what we're intaking, curating the places
Yeah.
that we decide to go to.
Filtering out the bad.
Yes. And even like when we were talking about algorithms, which is like a super world expanding like consumer place, there we can curate our algorithms. I think people feel so like beholden to the algorithm, and I think it's so silly to me because it's like no, it's literally just responding to your eye movements and like how much time you're watching the video. Like
Yeah.
you can just be
You
like
can train it to show you whatever you want.
yes, but you first have to train yourself to direct your attention intentionally. And yeah, so I think to me, like that's like my number one curation is like tell the world what you want to see.
Yeah.
Be clear about what you want to see.
Curation is really powerful, I think, as a form of world expansion and creativity, because there's this notion that the only kind of creative work that matters is like creating original pieces of art, like making a new painting, writing a new book, making a new movie. And the reality is we have so much art. We have so much knowledge. We have so much wisdom and just raw material across the human collective of civilization that good curation is incredibly valuable because it brings all the good things together. It cuts out the negative and the bad. A person who has curated a collection of 100 of the most beautiful and moving like paintings on a very specific genre, like maybe like these are the most beautiful like natural landscapes, or like these are the most beautiful ponds, like paintings of ponds, that's creating a lot of value to the world because it lets people respond to that and saves them a ton of time and effort. It shows, it opens, actually just, it is creating a new world. You've created a world of beautiful ponds and invited someone into it. So curation is huge for world expansion. Like we should be curating our lives. We should be curating our relationships. We should be curating our algorithms, the information and energy we take in. And we should be curating like ugly things out of our life, especially. Like if we want to have a beautiful life, we need to curate ugliness out because beauty requires the absence of ugliness.
Simon Saris, right?
Yeah, that's one of his big themes. Beauty requires the absence of ugliness, and it's so true. If you have a house with only beautiful things in it, it's going to be beautiful and it's going to feel beautiful, even if it's like a little messy and disorganized or chaotic in some way. Beautiful objects kind of speak for themselves and have their own energy. And if you have like a little plastic soap dispenser on your kitchen counter, and you have some kind of ugly functional recycling bin just lying around in your kitchen, it's going to feel ugly. It's going to feel cheap. This is a good segue for the next point, which is collaboration. How is collaboration world expanding?
Goodness. Um, well, I haven't collaborated in quite a long time until working with Matt, which has been like so world expanding. Mostly just in like understanding who I am as a collaborator, sort of allowing myself like the having the willingness to embrace a different someone else's idea. There's a Jeff Bezos quote that my husband and I love to use often, which is disagree and commit. Like when you're in
Hmm.
collaboration with somebody, two good ideas combined don't make another good idea. So it's better to just be like, I don't know why that your idea would work. I don't totally agree with it, but I'm gonna just try it. Let's just wear it. Let's put it on. And if it doesn't work, we'll try my idea. And, you know, let's
Yeah.
not like do these like half-baked things. And I think in that way, I find it really psychically sort of world expanding of like this willingness to like try on other people's perspectives and play with ideas that you might not even really like, but then they manifest and then you're like, oh, no, this actually is, I do like this. I just didn't see the vision.
Yeah, it's been so beautiful working with you and collaborating with you because we're both I think sharing and enhancing and refining this vision together. And we're both engaging in discovery because creating this podcast and having the kinds of conversations that we want to have is something that I think we both feel called to. I think we have all these things that we want to express that we haven't been able to. And this is a way of bringing our inner worlds into the external world. And that's inherently world expanding because we're letting new aspects of each other become known to the world and to each other and to ourselves. I think we're going to surprise each other in where we go.
I think so too. Actually, you reminded me, somebody, when I was asking our various Twitter mutuals about podcast title names, somebody was like, so like, what's it about? What's your podcast about? And I just like impulsively described it as like, it feels like just an extension of our Twitters, where it's like
Yeah.
we're getting to talk a little bit more in depth about things that we already talk about online. And
Yeah.
so in that,
And a little more improvisationally.
yes, exactly. A lot less like written official statement sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And in that way, it feels like the world that I've been sort of like creating on Twitter, that you've been creating on Twitter, is getting to
Hmm.
expand into like a new medium. And so
Yeah.
this literal collaboration feels like an expansion in that way.
I think collaboration, there's a lot of dimensions it touches on what we talked about earlier. Like there's that way how finding the right person to collaborate with for something requires knowing yourself. And it kind of requires them to know themselves a little too. You have to have some sense of self awareness about your strengths and your weaknesses and how you guys complement each other, what skills and unique strengths we bring to the team. There's this concept of discerning your shared goal together, which is kind of the North Star. It's like what are we walking towards? We have to be in alignment towards that to walk there together. And that's world expanding because that's something that we're sharing together, and it's outside of both of our current worlds.
I couldn't agree more. Um, I know we have so much more to get through, but we are coming up on 3 hours.
Yes.
I don't know how you're feeling, but I feel like it might be show and tell time. And
Yeah.
we can talk about whether we want to do a part two of this.
Yeah. I think that sounds great. Show and tell time.
Yeah. Did you bring
Okay.
something to show?
I sure did. It's just a favorite quote of mine from C.S. Lewis. And the quote is about virtues, and it's from the Screw Tape Letters. And C.S. Lewis wrote, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point, which means the point of highest reality." And I think that's an incredibly powerful quote. It's something that really drives home what is most important in being a good person and trying to be a better person is you have to be more courageous, and that whatever virtues you think you have, they will fold, they will crumble without courage. And courage is what's going to let you bend but not break in a difficult situation. And if you've ever been in a difficult situation and you've bent a lot but haven't broken, you know what that feels like, and you know how important courage is.
I love that. I've been thinking a lot about courage, and also temptation, funny enough. I've
Mm.
been thinking a lot about just how temptation comes in really questionable, mysterious ways, and how necessary courage is if you plan to live a righteous life.
Yeah. Temptation is maybe a good transition point for your show and tell. Is there? I'm thinking about biblical temptations,
It's true.
Shelby. Why am I thinking about biblical temptations?
I got a pet snake this weekend. I've wanted a snake since I was 18 years old. And my wonderful husband Jack got me a snake as an anniversary gift.
Amazing.
Even though our anniversary is not for another 3 months, but this was just a convenient time to get a snake.
There's no bad time for an anniversary snake.
Yes.
365 days a year.
So I'm gonna go get him out. He's in the tank behind me.
Yes. Snake time.
This is Apollo.
Amazing.
He's very curious, and he is just so fun to hold.
Look at the tongue.
I know.
The way it flicks out. It's
Are
beautiful.
you curious? Oh, there he goes. He's so cool. I'm obsessed
What
with
a
him.
beautiful creature.
He's apparently pretty happy here. He's constricting my arm because he's like, it's so warm. Um, he was just sitting under his lamp,
Yeah.
which was 80 degrees. It's not a
Hmm.
bad temperature in there for him.
Well, I love this. This is something you've wanted since you were a little girl, and now you have it.
I know. What an amazing manifestation. Like I said, it take a long time to manifest things.
Slow and steady always wins, though.
Yeah, that seems to be the case for me. Um, so anyway, it was a
Well,
really great discussion today, and
so good.
uh, I will catch you when you're back from your adventure around the world.
Yeah, we'll have more to say about world expansion and the internet and community and all these things in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So, thank you everyone for listening, and it's been a great conversation today.
Yep. We'll see you guys later.